Hello, my wonderful and lovely humans. So I am coming to you live from my house, which means that you're almost definitely going to meet my cats because they cannot mind their own business. So today, what we are talking about are macromolecules, and you guys should have gotten, hopefully it's a complete paper. So basically, I recorded this once already, and I'm not going to record it again. So I guess what we get is what we get. But anyways, you guys should have a paper similar to this, okay? Now, so in the first video, I showed you how to do it, but I cut them in half and I don't have any more. So that's why this is the last video. But anyways, so I'm going to show you guys how to cut this without scissors. So technically you should probably already have your pencil box because you are going to need glue sticks. Okay. But if you guys don't want to use scissors, my bad. If you guys don't want to use scissors, there's like this really easy way to cut paper, which I really recommend that everyone knows just because it's like really easy. And sometimes you don't have scissors. Well, anyways, you crease it along. So you guys have dotted lines, which is really nice, right? Right? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, you guys have dotted lines here. So you guys can fold them along the dotted lines and you're going to fold them one way and then you're going to fold them the opposite way and run your finger across. Well, sorry, run your nail across. So really like try to crease it well. And you're going to lay this flat and you are going to pull each side away from each other. So do you guys kind of see this? Now I'm holding this up, but that's because I'm kind of, I've done this before. Anyways, so you guys just kind of pull here. If you do it this way, you're more likely to rip it incorrectly. But I'm being super duper careful. Because like I said, this is my last copy. And I don't have a printer at home. Well, I do have a printer, but I don't have ink because your girl is broke. Anyways. Okay, so you should be able to have these strips of paper. Hopefully you guys have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops. Oh, I have 5. Why do I have 5? 1, 2. I think this is the, wait, 3. 4. Okay, sorry, I got an extra one. Okay, but anyways, okay, because I did it once before. Anyways. All right, so this is King Triton. He's wearing a Xmas sweater because he has issues and he licks his skin so bad that he like rubs off all the fur. So to prevent him from doing that, he wears a sweater. So I ran out of sweaters and all I had was this one. So this is awkward. But anyways, okay, bye. I told you it'd be weird. Okay, so I'm going to flip my camera so you guys can go ahead and see my notebook, which is what's important here because we're taking notes today. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and I've done my pretty little itty bitty title because, Miss Reyes doesn't really get to do notes anymore and I'm super excited. And as you can see, I learned a really cool way to make it look pretty. But anyways, that's beside the point. So we are talking about macromolecules, aka the molecules of life. Okay, and that is what your first piece of paper says here, the macromolecules of life. So what you guys are going to be doing, I don't want you to glue them all down right away. What I want you guys to do is to glue them as you get to them, okay? So I'm doing kind of a sloppy job right now, but you guys should probably do a slightly better one. I'm just trying to make sure that you guys get a full lecture before the bell rings. Okay. So now that I have that in, okay, so macromolecules, if we translate that, what it means, like literally what it means is, and I'm going to put a star next to macromolecules and underline it because like I said, I'm defining it, right? So if we actually look that up, what it translates to is big molecules. Also, guys, I'm using pretty colors, but that's just so I keep your attention. You guys are more than welcome to use pretty colors, but that is up to you. There are times where I do require coloring, but today is not one of them. It's your choice. All right. Anyways, macromolecules will literally translate to big molecules. Okay. And that's because pretty much all of the molecules can be pared down to these basic, what we call monomers. Okay, so each one of these things are a monomer. Okay, so what we have over here is a monomer of a carbohydrate, a monomer of a lipid, and a monomer of a protein. So this specific carbohydrate is glucose. This specific lipid is known as glycerol, and this specific protein is known as glycine. So there are a couple of things that are important to know about these guys. So we're gonna talk about them. So we need to talk a little bit about carbs. Okay, we need to talk a little bit about lipids. And of course, we can't forget about proteins. All right, so first of all, what we want to address here is that if we look at these, so we can obviously see that they look different, right? But if we look even closer, what you guys are going to notice is that the carbohydrate has the letters, only the letters C, H's, and O's. And like you guys can literally look all the way around it, okay? But at its basic structure, at its monomer level structure, a carbohydrate is made up of what? Carbon, it is made up of oxygen, and it is made up of hydrogen. Oops, I flipped those. There's a reason why it's important to keep those straight. And like I said, my bad, like this is my last paper. So y'all are gonna deal with it. Bless you. Or why did I bless myself? My bad, sorry guys. I'm so weird on video. Sorry, I'm so sorry, this is cringy. Okay, anyways, CHO. Okay, my bad. All right, so we got C's, we got O's, we got H's. Okay, so CHO. Now, if we look at the lipid structure, we're going to see the same thing. So they also only have C, H's, and O's. So C, H, and O. Now, it gets a little bit different when we get over here to our proteins because now we don't just have C, H, and O. We now have nitrogen. So we're going to add nitrogen into the mix by saying C, H, O, and N. Okay. So we know this as Cho, Cho, Chan. And in that order, it's just an easy way to remember, you know, what each one of these monomers actually has inside of it, what is made out of. Now, like I said, there are some really important differences that we need to point out here. So let's talk about those differences. What you guys are hearing is my kitten, little Sebastian. He is playing, so sorry. Anyways, so let's talk about the differences between these guys. So we have 1, we have 2, and we have 3 major differences here. So we kind of already figured out number 3, which is going to, well, actually, no. Let me go in order. My bad. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's talk about the first difference, which is going to be the shape of these structures, okay? So if you guys look at the carbohydrate, what you guys are going to see, if we follow it, at all bases of carbohydrates, you are going to notice that all carbohydrates will have a ring structure. So I'm going to write that here, ring structure. Okay, so all carbohydrates will end up in a ring structure. Lipids, in a similar way, but not as a ring, are going to show up as like a linear sort of thing. Okay. All right. And as you guys can see over here, the protein is a little bit different because it kind of has more of like a Y structure, maybe is what I'm noticing. But the major difference, right? You guys can see that there is clearly a difference here. Okay. So over here, carbohydrates are known as a ring structure. Here, lipids are known as a linear structure. Proteins, I would say, are a Y structure, but also that's not like necessarily things. So I'm going to hold off on actually writing that here. Anyways, so we have differences in shapes. Proteins are also a little bit different because they have that little extra nitrogen. Okay, so proteins have a little special nitrogen molecule. Okay, and I'm writing that in blue because what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle it up here because I want to point out the fact that proteins have that nitrogen. Okay, and that's what makes them very different. Now, the third and final difference, okay, that what we are going to have here is a difference in the number of bonds that we have. So let's do number. I'm trying to be cutesy with it. of bonds. I guess I'll do blue again. Number of bonds. All right. So we need to talk about bonds because guess what? Bonds are the same thing as energy. Okay. When we have bonds, we have energy stored up in here. Okay. And that is going to be important. And we'll explain each one of these three molecules and exactly why those bonds are so important. But they're going to have a different number of bonds. And if you guys count over here, I'm just going to tell it to you guys. Okay. But if you count all the bonds that this carbohydrate in particular has, it has 19 different bonds. Oops. I'm just going to write bonds for that first one. Okay, so this carbohydrate has 19 different bonds. If you count every bond, including the ones in between the OHs, because there is a bond there, you'll get 19 bonds. If you count how many are in this lipid over here, what you guys are going to find is that you get 14 bonds. And lastly, this protein, did I say protein or lipid? Okay, I meant lipid. Anyways, this protein over here is going to have 10 bonds. So my question to you guys is which one of these three is going to have the most energy stored up inside there? Yes, you're supposed to answer, guys. Say it out loud. Okay, if you guys said carbohydrates, you are absolutely correct. And that is something that is important and specific about carbohydrates. So why don't you guys go ahead and get that little paper out? So now we need model number 2, carbohydrates. And guess what? Elephant's diet. Okay, so guess what our next animal is going to be? Oh, I don't know. Oh, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do a sloppy job of gluing this down. I'll probably go back and fix it later, but you guys should hopefully be able to glue it down pretty decently. Oops. All right. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's talk about carbohydrates. Okay, so carbohydrates are also going to be known as sugars. And if any of you guys are into like tracking your macros or whatever, you guys are probably pretty familiar with this stuff. So pay attention because if y'all are trying to get like, what is it called? Yoked. Okay. Like this is something you want to pay attention to. Just saying. All right. So we have elephant's diet carbohydrates. So up here, what we had with this one ring structure, we had what we call a monomer. But when we put two monomers or more together, what we end up with is a polymer. Okay. So this guy, this sucrose molecule is actually what is known as a polymer. Okay. And if you guys pay attention to the mono and the poly, so if you guys think about it, right? I talked about how science is really cool and that you can break up words and figure out the meaning in that way. Well, mono means one. Okay. And if you look over here, down here at poly, poly means many. So monomer is literally talking about one carbohydrate. Polymer is talking about many or several. Okay, so more than one basically. But what you guys are seeing here is a slight chemical reaction. So you have two monomers over here. One monomer of glucose, one monomer of fructose. Okay. Over here, what we have is a polymer of sucrose. All right. So this is like your first introduction to chemistry, because what I'm going to tell you now is that when you guys have a final product over here, okay, so in chemistry, you want to pay attention to this arrow. Wherever that arrow is pointing to is going to end up as your product. Okay, so our product of this reaction is going to be glucose and fructose. And the other side of this, when you're to the left of the arrow, this is what's going to be called our reactants. Okay. And the reason is because what's going to happen over here is something is going to react and it's going to end up with a product. So this is your product. This is like, you know, once it gets pooped out of the factory. So this is going into the factory as basic materials. This one's getting pooped out as your Nike shoes. Okay. So these are like the laces, the shoelace eyes or whatever, and aglets, the soles of your shoes, right? You put all those together, you put them through the factory and out comes a Nike shoe. Okay, so that's chemistry basically. So anyways, so sucrose over here, let's talk a little bit about sucrose. Let us talk a little bit about sucrose. So sucrose is more complex. Is more complex than glucose is. Okay, sucrose is more complex than glucose is. And if you guys look over here, right, we only have one ring structure here, but we have two. So as you guys can see, obviously it's more complex. So during this process, what's happening over here is this arrow, because we're talking about an elephant's diet. So basically this elephant is eating. What it is going to do here, so remember, what is the factory? Well, it's a body. So what's happening here, the process here is called digestion. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. Digestion. Okay. So what is happening here is digestion. Now the elephant is eating its, I don't know, grass, hay, or whatever, and it's going through the elephant's tummy. The elephant is breaking down the food into smaller pieces to get what out of the bonds? Energy out of the bonds, okay? And it'll break it down into its basic forms, glucose and fructose, okay? So basically sucrose will be broken. It will be broken down during the process of digestion. Okay. Now, because sucrose is so complex, right? What do we have more of? If it's more complex than glucose, what do we have more of? We have a lot more bonds. And what do we say? Bonds mean energy. Well, guess what? This has at least twice the amount that this one has. And actually it has a little bit more than that, because if you guys notice, there's another bond here that wasn't over here. So you're going to have a lot more energy stored up in here. You're going to have energy released up in here. So when those bonds are broken, when bonds are broken, comma, energy, and we're talking about big energy here, gets released. All right. When bonds are broken, energy gets released. And actually, as the result of this specific one, we are going to have quite a bit of energy being released here. Okay. So if you guys need to, pause the video and copy this down. Okay, hopefully you guys have had enough time to get all these notes copied down. We are going to go ahead and move on to our second page of notes here. So now that we finished up model 2, we're going to go ahead and do model 3 here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get that glued in. Like I said, I'm kind of doing a sloppy job because I'm doing it for the camera. Ha. Hollywood. Like, subscribe, follow. Huh. No, just kidding. I haven't monetized this yet, at least. Well, I mean, you know, I'm teaching. There's that. But there's not a whole lot of money in teaching. Nobody. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Anyways, okay. So model number 3. Now we're talking about our proteins. And what do we say was different about proteins over here? We definitely pointed out that N, and we definitely pointed out that Y structure. So again, if we are looking at the chemistry of this, looking at the arrow, where do we have reactants and products? So remember, to the left of the arrow is always the reactants. To the right of the arrow is always the product. So what we're talking about here is the elephant and the lion's diet. Okay, so what we're getting out of this is some proteins. So let's look at how proteins get broken down, because remember, over here, what we have are polymers, because this is the bigger form. And down here, what we have are monomers, okay? All right, so proteins. Let's talk about what we even need proteins for, okay? So why are you guys eating all that steak? Well, let me tell y'all. I'm gonna tell you. Okay, so the reason that we need proteins is for growth and repair. Okay, we need this to grow and repair our cells, repair our body, to grow our body, to grow teeth, you know, bones. That's good stuff, right? So, what we have working here for us are going to be 20 plus amino acids. Okay, there are more than 20 amino acids that organisms need. Okay, so those 20 amino acids are going to, these amino acids are going to work like letters in the alphabet. To make up different words. Okay, so in the same way that I put all of these different letters that were in the alphabet, I put them together and I made up words. And when I put up the words together, I made up a sentence, didn't I? So in the same sort of way, and I'm going to actually make sure that I highlight letters and words, okay, because this is what's important here. So they're going to work like letters. We can put together some amino acids, and eventually what we'll get is a protein. So the words are going to be like proteins, and the letters are going to be the amino acids, okay? So words equals amino acids. Okay, and oh, sorry, words are not amino acids. I'm glad you guys caught me, right? Words are going to be like proteins. Okay, and that means the letters are going to be like amino acids. There we go. There we go. Now we got it straightened out. Sorry. Okay. So the words are like proteins. Okay. Now we are ready for model number 4. Okay, so get that sucker glued in, and I'm gonna zoom in up here so that way if you guys need a couple extra minutes to copy it down, you can do so. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing a quick and sloppy pasting of model number 4. Like I said, I will go back and fix it later because I need to make sure that they stick in here for next year. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to talk about some lipids, okay? All right. Okay, so lipids are known as fats. All right. Lipids are known as fats. So I'm guessing that's probably what you've heard more of, okay? So once again, now that we're looking at our structure, what's happening here, we have another chemical reaction. This time it is between monoglyceride, a fatty acid, and we are going to create this product over here, which is apparently diglyceride. So which one is the monomer? Which one is the polymer? All right. If you guys said that the one that we're putting together is probably the monomer, and this is probably the polymer, then you were correct. This is the monomer. And actually, it kind of helps that this says monoglyceride. Oh, look at that, right? Also, if you guys look at it, we're putting something together and we're making something bigger. So really, you know, if a polymer is many and a monomer is one, then a polymer would obviously be larger, right? Okay, anyways. All right, so let's talk about those lipids. Why do we need lipids? Well, the main reason that we have lipids for is energy storage. So we talked about where energy is stored in. Where's it stored in, guys? It's stored in the bonds, okay? So clearly, if we're looking here, we can see that there are so many bonds in a lipid. And honestly, because of its structure, we can stack them on top of each other. So those bonds, those lipids can be pretty large. So we have energy stored in between the bonds, and it's going to also provide us, you know, once that lipid becomes a tissue, it's going to also provide us with some insulation here. Going to provide us with insulation, which you guys probably know as warmth. So yes, Miss Reyes is probably a little bit warmer than you guys at any given point in time. Just saying. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, so don't forget, it is very important that you guys take away from this that lots of bonds, right? Because like I said, lipids have lots of bonds. Lots of bonds. Lots of bonds. When we have lots of bonds, we have lots of energy. Okay. And if you guys look at that structure, you see so many different bonds there. All right. Okay. Well, that's all I got for you. This is past me. Miss Reyes, why don't you go ahead and take it on over? All right. I'm gonna zoom out here so you guys can, if you need to, you can pause the video and get what you need. Otherwise, you guys have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. Be safe and have a lovely day. Okay. Bye.